You know what? I'm not even gonna bother putting a spoiler warning on this video. I mean, I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm recording this literally on the first day of June. But everything I've been hearing about it so far makes it sound like a carbon copy of the original, to the point where I can actually justify making this an update 8.5 rather than an update 9. Like, literally, what is even the point of adding the live action How to Train Your Dragon characters to the tier list when they're more or less the exact same as their animated counterparts? But then I had an idea. What if I just replay my rankings of these characters from the original tier list, albeit in VHS quality, just to add something resembling pizzazz? Yeah, yeah, let's just get this over with. And we got fish legs from How to Train Your Dragon and Snotlout. Yeah, they're about equal in quality. I put Snotlout lower because, in the third movie, he tries to hit on Hiccup's mom. That kind of does make me a bit uncomfortable. Alright, moving on into A tier over here. And right in the middle of these two are Tough Nut and Rough Nut from How to Train Your Dragon. I like Rough Nut a little more, because Kristen Wiig. And Tough Nut, TJ Miller, good actor, not a very good person. They replaced him for the third movie. And I kind of wish in Hidden World they kind of got a better sound alike for Tough Nut. Because, yeah, he's like doing the voice and everything, but it's just not. It's enough subtlety to where it's kind of bad. Unsubtlety, I should. Yeah, surprisingly, this was a really hard list to make. It's even harder to explain my thoughts in video. Just why I didn't want to write a script for this, or at least for this part. I didn't want to write a script for this part of the video because I knew it was going to be hard, but now I'm realizing it's kind of harder explaining my points unscripted. Anyways, let's move on to the really good DreamWorks characters in S tier. Alright, we finally made it to S tier of the DreamWorks character tier list. Then we got a Gobber from How to Train Your Dragon. He I'd like to think he's the comic relief. He's the true comic relief of that franchise as opposed to any of the other Dragon Riders. Plus, Craig Ferguson, Scottish accent. Can't go wrong with that. And we got Stoic from How to Train Your Dragon, which, yeah, I'm gonna be honest here. Stoic, in the first movie, he's kind of like an overprotective dad trope, but you really feel his death in the second movie, and the third film kind of provides more insight as to how he became an overprotective dad. So that's kind of why I have him in a mid S. Yeah, there's really not much to say about Stoic. His death scene still gets me to this day, though, in the second movie. Like, seriously, he just reunited with his wife, and now he's got to say goodbye to everyone. And we got all the great How to Train Your Dragon characters. You got Toothless, Hiccup, and Astrid. Astrid, it does she does sort of fall into the same problem I have with Stoic in the first movie, where she's like, oh, she doesn't really care for Hiccup at first, but then suddenly she starts to like him. But then you see in the sequel she gets more development. Like, you see their relationship blossoming. Yeah, so that's part of why I put Astrid in S. Like, you can really feel the growth in her relationship with Hiccup, who also goes through a lot in these damn movies. You know? I will say, even though Hiccup and Astrid are the better characters, Shrek and Fiona, I think, have the better relationship. It feels more natural. Whereas I feel like in the first How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup and Astrid's relationship was a little forced. And, the first How to Train Your Dragon kind of does suffer from, like, first movie syndrome a bit. Doesn't really know what its characters want to be till, like, the sequels. And then Toothless? Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say here? I mean, Toothless, he's adorable. And, Hiccup and Toothless's bond is, like, awesome. Like, and another thing, I've heard a lot of people say this, Toothless kind of looks like Stitch from Disney's Lilo and Stitch. Which does make sense, because they both share a director in Chris Sanders. Very talented man. Oh, excuse me. I had to burp. Yeah, Toothless. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. And with that, here's where we get to the more interesting part of the video, going over DreamWorks' upcoming slate! Yeah! Alright, well, their next movie is one that will receive a proper Update 9,
and that is The Bad Guys 2 on August 1st, which I am still very hyped for, especially after that new trailer. Following that is Gabby's Dollhouse the movie on September 26th, which, despite me not being the target audience, it does look rather cute. It could maybe be as good as the Paw Patrol movies, which I thought were pretty solid. After that, the untitled film that was previously slated for September 25th, 2026, is now known as Forgotten Island, which is being directed by Joel Crawford of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish fame. I'm glad to see him directing an original movie. He's come a long way since, well, creating a literal war criminal. Then, on December 23rd, we have Shrek 5 coming out, which, let me just say, by the way, that the whole redesign discourse is genuinely one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. And speaking of stupid, we got a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon 2 opening on June 11th, 2027. And when I say stupid, I don't mean because it's a live action remake, but more so because they're announcing it before the first movie even comes out. I mean, it's probably a guaranteed hit, but I still think that Universal should have just waited before revealing something like this. And then finally, we have an untitled picture on September 22nd, 2028. It says 21st, but that's because it's in This is Universal's calendar in Switzerland. Yeah, September 2028. That being said, I do think that DreamWorks Animation proper will likely get some movies released throughout 2027 and potentially even early 2028 before then. Like, I know the former year currently has a Cocomelon movie coming out. Yes, really. The guy who made the tier list said that I'm going to be on my own for that one. But anyways, that is update 8.5 of the DreamWorks character tier list. So until next time, this is Bumpy Gaming going back under the bed. And remember, there are fates worse than death, such as putting down this movie just to prop up Elio, Bad Guys 2, Smurfs, and not to mention every other movie coming out this summer. Like, seriously, why do we need to make a competition out of this shit?